Guerrilla Games has all but publicly confirmed that at least one multiplayer Horizon game is in development, maybe even two, and a little while back, early development footage actually leaked for one of them. We also know that Netflix is working on an adaptation of Zero Dawn, and I think it would make sense for the launch of that show to coincide with the rumored remaster of the first game. Plus, at some point we'll be getting Forbidden West on PC. So the Horizon universe is definitely expanding, which I'm totally excited about. And in this video, we'll dive into everything we know about the various Horizon projects. Rumors of a multiplayer Horizon game have been circulating basically since Zero Dawn launched in 2017. In fact, there was a point in Zero Dawn's development where Guerrilla considered having a co-op mode, and they reportedly revisited the concept for Forbidden West, but in both cases it was abandoned in favor of a higher quality single-player experience. But Guerrilla definitely seems interested in doing some sort of co-op multiplayer version of Horizon. A separate game, or games, spun off the main series could be a better way to introduce a multiplayer experience, and it looks like Guerrilla is thinking exactly that. In December 2022, they quietly confirmed that they are indeed working on a multiplayer game in the Horizon universe in a job recruitment tweet, which clearly states an internal team is developing a separate online project in the Horizon universe. Plus, it mentions the existence of additional external project teams. So maybe it was a bit of a long shot, but I have to admit I was a bit disappointed when we didn't get any Horizon news at the recent PlayStation showcase. In retrospect, I guess that's not too surprising given the fact that the showcase turned out to be a stage for almost all third-party games. Apparently, industry insiders like Tom Henderson were surprised Sony didn't show some games they've already seen trailers for behind the scenes. So I think it's likely we get another Sony event in August or something like that. But yeah, I just really wanted to hear something about Horizon. I've been on the edge of my seat for some news on the multiplayer projects ever since the Call of the Mountain teaser trailer, where studio director Jan Bart van Beek mentioned that Forbidden West was only the beginning for the world of Horizon.
Now, as you join Aloy on her journey into the Forbidden West, it's great to know that this is not the final frontier of the world of Horizon. In fact, it's only the beginning.
Of course, he was definitely referencing Call of the Mountain there, but to me, that also felt like a broader statement that there's a lot more to come than just a VR game and the inevitable third entry in the main series. And we do know there's more. Even though Guerrilla and Sony haven't made an official announcement yet, I want to show you all the pieces of the puzzle and how they can give us a picture, if even just a fuzzy one, of what these Horizon multiplayer projects might be. If you go to the jobs page on Guerrilla's website right now, you can clearly see there are categories of positions for single player, online project, and external projects. Note that last one is plural. Single player is clearly the third entry in the main Horizon series, but those other two categories confirm Guerrilla is working on at least a couple of projects in addition to Horizon 3. That job recruitment tweet we mentioned earlier and the language in these official job postings confirm these projects are multiplayer titles, which makes sense given Sony's huge push to have 12 live service games out by early 2026. So let's start with the external projects and then we'll circle back to the internal online project, which I personally find more intriguing. Back in November 2022, Korean news outlet MTN reported that NCSoft would be working on Project H for Sony. Given the Korean studio's expertise in building popular MMOs such as Lineage and Guild Wars, we presume Project H is a Horizon MMO of some sort. Now, I'm not really sure how I feel about a Horizon MMO. To support dozens or even hundreds of players interacting at once, MMOs have to sacrifice a lot of graphical quality. And I think the difference compared to the main series games would be pretty jarring when top-class graphics are one of the reasons we love Horizon. Now, I'll admit I sunk a lot of hours into MMOs like RuneScape as a kid, so I understand the weirdly masochistic satisfaction of grinding XP for hours upon hours to level up skills. I could imagine grinding Horizon-related skills like crafting to make arrows and traps. Archery as a combat skill would be an obvious one, and maybe machine mastery so we could override more powerful machines. And who knows, maybe a modern engine with better graphics could actually make a Horizon MMO look pretty good. They're nothing like Forbidden West, but Ashes of Creation, which has been in development for a while, and Throne and Liberty, slated to release this year, and funny enough developed by NCSoft themselves, look a lot better than the dated MMOs we're used to. And based on wording in some of Guerrilla's external projects job postings, I think it's safe to say that a Horizon game developed by NCSoft or some other studio would still be held to high quality standards. For example, the art director post states that the position is responsible for communicating and protecting the value and standards of the Horizon Horizon franchise and driving external projects to high quality standards. But personally, if this NCSoft Horizon project is real, I'm hoping for something a little different than a traditional MMO. Perhaps it will look something like the early dev footage that was leaked on Reddit back in January. The leak was quickly picked up by Gaming Insider, and the Horizon subreddit mods swiftly removed the links to the footage and a piece of concept art after that. So unfortunately, I can't show you the footage because Sony would definitely take this video down. But you can still find it out there if you do a little Googling. Now, if you do decide to search around for that footage, it can be easy to go astray in the dark corners of the internet. So you might want to consider using a VPN to keep yourself safe, and I've got a great deal for you guys on NordVPN linked down below this video. NordVPN is our very first sponsor here on the channel, and one of the reasons I chose to work with them is because my wife and I have actually used NordVPN for years. A VPN helps keep you and your private information safe by hiding your IP address, which is a bit like a fingerprint for your internet connection. Basically, all of your activity online is protected inside NordVPN's secure tunnel between your device and the destination website, so someone else can't intercept it and steal sensitive information from you. For example, if you connect to Wi-Fi at a coffee shop or airport, the security is often really poor. Even worse, someone could actually trick you by creating a fake Wi-Fi network with the same name as the real one, and then if you connect to it, they'll be able to monitor you and steal your information. A few years ago, my wife's debit card and checking account information got stolen, and we're pretty sure this is exactly how it happened, which is why we ended up getting NordVPN. One of the things I like about Nord is that it's really easy to set up and use on almost any device. Of course, you can use it on Windows or Mac, but they also have an app so you can use it on your iOS or Android device, which is actually the main way my wife and I use it. Once you have it set up, you can just hit Quick Connect and you'll be connected to the fastest nearby server. Or if you want to, you can choose a server anywhere else in the world, which will allow you to access content like shows on Netflix if they aren't available in your region. You can just hop around to different regions using the VPN to see if a show you want to watch is available in another one. There's a bunch of other benefits too, like some free security features that work even when the VPN function is off. If you want to learn more, I have a link for you guys below where you can get a really great deal on a 2-year plan plus 4 extra months for free. And Nord has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so even if you decide you don't like it, they'll take care of you. Anyway, like I was saying, I can't show you that leaked footage, but there were some interesting details I noticed when I watched it. The footage showed 2 camps that were clearly bases for small groups of players to prepare to head out into the larger map. It definitely felt like there would be 2 small teams competing against each other in some way. However, there was also a third, much larger camp that appeared to be run by the Eclipse, that pesky cult of Shadow Karja, so maybe the 2 teams have to work together to fend off NPCs or resurrected ancient machines like Corruptors and Deathbringers. Throughout the 12 minutes of footage, the players swapped between 8 different characters, none of which were anyone we've seen before, and each one clearly had specialized combat abilities. For example, one had what appeared to be Utaru-inspired abilities like a vine grenade and explosive fertilizer, and another had sword and parrying abilities. Unfortunately, none of the abilities were actually used, I just saw them in the UI for each character. But probably what stood out most in this footage was the graphical style, which you can get a sense for in this concept art image that also leaked. I've heard a lot of people describe this as looking like Fortnite, which is pretty accurate. We definitely have brighter and more saturated colors here, which I can confirm was true in the footage, and that's a departure from the realism we're used to in Forbidden West. I wouldn't jump to conclusions that this game is like Fortnite though. On a loading screen, I found the date June 3rd, 2020, which was about 3 years ago at this point, and about a year and a half before Forbidden West was released. The original poster of this leak on Reddit mentioned that it was very early pre-alpha footage, and remember, it's from 3 years ago, so things could have changed dramatically by this point. It's also impossible to tell if this footage is of the internal online project being worked on by Guerrilla themselves, or if it's one of the external projects. Honestly, at this point, given how old this footage is, even though it's the only tangible thing we've seen, I'm inclined to believe it was basically a very early experiment, and I'm not reading into it too much. Instead, I'd much prefer to speculate based on the more concrete bits of info we have from Guerrilla's job postings, so let's take a look at those. Going back to their December 2022 tweet, they clearly state that while they're continuing to work on solo adventures for Aloy, they have an internal team working on a separate, online project that features a new cast of characters and a unique stylized look. They also state that friends will be able to explore the majestic wilds of Horizon together. Now, the new cast of characters and stylized look do line up with the leaked footage and concept art. But again, I think that was a very early experiment, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if the end product looks very different. Though we should definitely be prepared for any multiplayer Horizon game to be a step down in graphical quality compared to the main game. There's just no way to do multiplayer games with the same level of detail as single player titles. Personally, I'm fine with that, but I know a lot of Horizon players will probably be put off by it. So I would just say don't write write off the game until we at least have an official announcement and some actual gameplay to evaluate. Back in the job postings, we can find some interesting info about the gameplay elements. Lots of posts, like this one for a lead world designer, mention a multiplayer world and activities, confirming the core multiplayer aspect of the game, but some give us more details. For example, in this lead systems designer post, the description mentions creating systems for skills, items, rewards, and most interestingly, power progression and scoring. It then goes on to mention systems that affect the player's experience minute to minute, but also overall account progression. So it's sounding like we'll have some RPG skills and leveling elements that transcend the time we spend in any one multiplayer session, whether those end up being matches or dungeon raid type experiences inside cauldrons or something else. I also found the principal writer posting pretty interesting, as it mentions stories and dialogue with dramatic conflict and subtext, complex narrative features and content, as well as quests, factions, and backstories, and a responsibility to advocate for the game's emotional arc. To me, all of that points to a rich story and lore. I wouldn't expect it to be as deep as the single-player titles, but I'm happy to see that narrative is still a priority for this game. There have also been multiple posts for a senior social systems designer, which is all about creating ways for players to interact, build lasting friendships, design matchmaking systems that help like-minded players find each other, and develop communication tools that help players take on cooperative challenges. The senior combat designer post also calls out cooperative opportunities, which is awesome because I think a cooperative focus for this game would not only fit with the franchise, but also resonate with the existing Horizon community. Now, in February of last year, right around the launch of Forbidden West, Marc Olivier was hired for a senior social systems designer position. For a while, his LinkedIn page just stated that he was working on an unannounced project, but a few months later, that changed to show that it is indeed the Horizon Online project. Even more interesting is Simon LaRoche's page, who's been working as the game director on the online project since 2018. Simon actually used to work at Guerrilla like 15 years ago back in the Killzone days working on multiplayer maps. More interesting to me though is the fact that he's been working on the Horizon Online project for about 5 years at this point, which could indicate the game is actually further along than I thought, though I'm sure the combination of the pandemic and finishing up Forbidden West and the Burning Shores DLC slowed things down for a while. Overall though, it's sounding to me like the online project will be a story-driven co-op where players will have to work together in small groups to complete quests or missions of some sort. What these missions will be, we don't know yet. Maybe we'll have to work together to take down massive machines like in the leaked concept art. We also see that theme in old concept art for Zero Dawn. I could also see teams of players being tasked with decommissioning the global cauldron network that Hephaestus has taken over, now with enhanced abilities after its brief time on the Zenith network at the end of Forbidden West. Whatever it ends up being, given that it's been in development for at least 5 years, I'll be surprised if we don't at least get a teaser for the internal online project by the end of 2023. As for the external project NCSoft is supposedly working on, job postings describing very early development for that one only started popping up in 2022. So I wouldn't expect to get any news on that until sometime in 2024 at the earliest. Now, let's talk about this Netflix show. News on that was first posted by a user over on Reset Era, who caught Sony Pictures CEO Tony Vinciquerra mentioning it in the May 2022 Sony Business Segment Briefings Pictures Segment Q&A. In that video, Sony put some overlay text saying that the shows for Horizon, God of War, and Gran Turismo were all in discussion and not finalized. But since then, it's become clear that the Horizon show has indeed moved forward. In August 2022, Steve Blackman, creator of the Umbrella Academy, did an interview where he confirmed he and Michelle Lovretta are co-creators for the Horizon show, and he called it Horizon Zero Dawn. So instead of something totally new, it sounds like it will be a retelling of the Zero Dawn story, hopefully with some more areas fleshed out, which I think would be really cool. Imagine diving into more detail on Aloy's upbringing with Rost, and exploring some of the lore that we currently only get as data points in the games, perhaps as flashbacks to Elizabeth's time. Casting hasn't been announced yet, and it hasn't been confirmed as a live action either, but if it is, then my vote for Aloy's actress is Rose Leslie, who played Ygritte in Game of Thrones.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
There's a rumored PS5 remaster of Zero Dawn in the works as well, which could be one of the external projects on Guerrilla's site. According to MP First, who originally reported on this, the remaster would bring graphical improvements from Forbidden West to the original game. I think it would make a lot of sense for this to launch around the time of the Netflix show so that new players could have the best possible experience, though I could also see the remaster launching earlier too. We can also expect Forbidden West to get ported to PC at some point, just like Zero Dawn. In those same briefings where the Netflix show was revealed, PlayStation PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan mentioned how Sony has seen a lot of success bringing titles like Zero Dawn and God of War to PC, so they're definitely motivated to move PC ports along a little more quickly than they have in the past. In 2021, Sony also purchased Nixxes Software, a Dutch developer who specializes in porting games to PC. They actually did the PC port for Spider-Man Miles Morales and the PS5 remaster for the first Spider-Man game, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're working on the Forbidden West PC port and maybe even the Zero Dawn remaster. This is purely a hunch, but I'd be surprised if we don't see Forbidden West on PC by the end of 2023, and if not, then definitely 2024. Alright guys, that's everything I've been able to dig up on the unannounced Horizon projects. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new, leaving a like down below would be much appreciated. Hopefully we can get some announcements on these Horizon projects soon, and if we do, you can bet I'll do an updated video on anything significant. I'll have a bunch of links down below for all the information I dug up for this video, and don't forget to check out that NordVPN deal too. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.